Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 249. It's January of 2021. It's a brand new year and boy, are we all ready for it. But are you ready for a successful year of genealogy research? In this episode, you're going to learn how to develop an effective research plan and preserve and protect your genealogy. Get ready to rate your readiness for research success. You know, it was funny. Somebody was asking me the other day, so are you ready for 2021? And I'm like, I've been ready since April 2020, right? Are you feeling that way? I am. But it did really get me thinking about being ready for a new year of genealogical research success. We're going to cover how you're going to make the most of the year, how you're going to make sure that you're ready to be successful, primed and ready to go, and focused on what your goals are. It would feel really good to get some real wonderful things accomplished that we've had in our heart's desire. So I've got 10 items for you, really 10 questions. And my guess is that after we kind of cover these, that it's going to continue to spur other thoughts and ideas of things that maybe we need to do a little bit of work on in order to make sure that they don't become stumbling blocks for us. So consider this a little bit of a tune-up. How about that? A tune-up for 2021. Let's rate your readiness for research success. So the first question is, have you selected a place to start? That sounds really simple, doesn't it? But in reality, it's something that we often miss. You remember me talking about wanting to play the guitar. And it seemed to me that as kind of quieted down and closed in as we were in 2020, it was a good opportunity to try and make that goal a reality. So I have been learning the guitar, and I started with an online course just to learn the basics. I picked one song that I really wanted to learn how to play. And for 3 months, I worked my way through the online course. I did all the lessons, and I played that song over and over every day. Now, this resulted in two things. First of all, I did make progress, and I learned how to play the song Crazy on You that I wanted to learn how to play. It also resulted in my husband and my neighbors wanting to blowtorch my guitar because I played that song constantly. After that first 3 months of reaching my goals, I had several weeks. I continued practicing. I didn't feel like I was making any progress at all. And it was really strange because it had been a very productive first 3 months. So it turned out that I had reached my goals. I'd reached my initial goal, and I knew the most popular chords that I needed to know. I had memorized the pentatonic scale. I could play Crazy on You to a captive audience here in my home. But I had not stopped to identify what were going to be the next set of goals that I was going to have. So I spent an evening. I went through my record collection, and I made a list of my 6 favorite songs. And then I put them in the order that I wanted to learn them. And most importantly, I decided what was the first song that I really wanted to learn to play. And once I knew that, I knew exactly how I was going to spend my practice time. So when you think about, and you get a chance to sit down to your computer and really dig into your family history research, having a predetermined project in mind helps you get down to business faster. It keeps you from wandering aimlessly, and you're going to feel like it's really been productive, that you've made progress. And it sounds simple because it's not something we tend to do in a very formal way. But I think that when you really want to make headway, it's worth the time. So put that on your checklist. If you haven't done it already, identify what's that place you want to start and go from there. So if you want to learn more about not wandering aimlessly, not falling down the rabbit holes that can capture us all, You can watch some of the past 11s with Lisa episodes. I know many of you are premium members at my Genealogy Gems website, and you'll find under the Premium Videos tab, once you're logged in, you can click on 11s and you'll find all those early episodes. I think it's the first 10 or 11. Episode number 2 is really the one that you want to start with. That was called How Alice Avoids Falling Down the Rabbit Hole. Remember that? And I think that it'll help you kind of get focused. And question number 2 is going to help us get focused too. Have you developed a project research question? Okay, so we know what our goal is, but I think formulating it in a question helps send us down the path of actually finding answers. This also was something that we touched on in episode number 2, this idea of a research question. Think of it this way, at the beginning of every genealogical journey, there is a good question. And the more you understand what it is and you're precise about it and you've really thought it through, it stays on the forefront of your mind and it really directs you. It gets you to your genealogy goals. Gosh, I think it was 2 years ago. Wow, time flies. I was doing kind of a 2-day seminar out at the Senior Expo in Utah. And Sunny Morton joined me there. She's been on the show many times. And we kind of worked together, a tag team, on kind of helping the group learn more about how to formulate their questions. And so she shared the project that she really wanted to work on. And it was family lore, which many of us have. Okay, so there's that story in the back of your mind that has been plaguing you. You're not sure how to tackle it, or you started to and it became a cold case because you ran into problems like I did with my Irish research. Her story, her family lore was that her ancestor, Washington McClellan, had immigrated to the U.S. from England. That's what was kind of always known in the family. He was working on the railroad when he met a girl in Idaho. She became pregnant. They married. He converted to the LDS Church, and they raised a family together. This is a story she's heard for a long time, but she'd like to verify it and find out, basically, is that story true? So be thinking about, if you haven't identified yours already for this year, is there a story in your family's history that you've heard but never truly verified? Maybe there's one that started to reveal itself and you got stuck kind of in a cold case mode where you ran into some barriers and it's been a while. That would be a wonderful one to reopen as well. Don't feel like that those are impossible. My goodness, when we did my Irish genealogy together, I was probably along with you kind of going, wow, it's amazing to see something break open that had appeared to be just impossible to figure out. And there's lots of different ways as to approach a cold case, but the most important thing that you can do is formulate that specific question. So her research question sounds pretty simple, but it really kind of targeted the project that she'd already identified as her priority. She recapped and summarized what the story was, what the elements of it were, and then the question is, of course, is that story true? Well, this is going to bring us to question number 3, which is, do you have a project plan for your project? Do you have a research plan that's really going to get you there? And that breaks this question down, because what we're going to find over and over again is we develop our question and then we figure out, oh my gosh, there's so many pieces to this. In fact, there are so many questions in that question. If you think about hers, yes, she has a targeted project and she wanted to know if it was true. She knew she was going to want to verify it, but there's actually a lot of questions built into just that one question. So let's look at how you might break that up. And if you've ever written a research question for a current project, I encourage you to sit down and see if you can't break it up into multiple questions. The finer the questions, the more each one is more targeted, the easier it becomes to develop the research plan. So we took her question and we can break this down into a lot of bite-sized, actionable questions, things that feel doable, things that you feel like, hey, if I go get that answer, I can check that off the list, and now I'm one step closer. So her question about, is this family story true with all its details, really broke out to many. Where exactly was Washington born? And where was he from? Was he living in the same place? Where did he immigrate from? So even that one could have a couple of questions in it. When did he come to the United States? So we need to kind of isolate that moment of immigration. And why and how did he end up out west? Now, that might be a focus on occupation. I don't know. I'm guessing, actually, that when she tackles this one, that could break down into several additional questions as well. Did he work on the railroad? Because that was one of the elements of the story. So there might be some specific railroad research to be done there. When and where did he marry? And when was the oldest child born? And did he actually join the LDS Church? Can she find proof of that? So you can see lots of different questions here, some of which may even have additional questions in them. But it's starting really to reveal a path, isn't it? A research path for her project. So ask yourself the question, for 2021, do I have a research plan ready to go? Now, if we took just one of her questions, so where exactly was Washington from in England? Well, we could identify and prioritize the sources, the records that she's going to need to answer that question. So part of your research plan is you've got the question. Now we have to make a list. What are the records that we think would have the relevant evidence that we need? Some of these might be in archives and libraries. We need to make a trip, or we need to hire somebody, or we need to go on the random acts of genealogical kindness and see if there's somebody in that area who could look that up for us. They have a Facebook group. Or can we do this online? Could we do this right here from our computer, perhaps with some of the genealogy subscriptions we have, or using Google to do some of the free searches? So your research plan starts to kind of make itself as you follow these questions. As you're asking yourself each one, you've got your project, you've got your question, you've broken it down into multiple, and now we're getting the lists of the sources, the records, and where might they be found? And that in itself is going to have a little bit of research to be done, all of which you can do that part online for sure. Is you can go onto WorldCat, you can check Google Books, you can do Google searches, you can look up the archive websites and library websites, check their catalogs. So much you can get done before you ever have to think about leaving home or getting some help. This is going to determine the order in which you're going to locate each identified record. As we're thinking about, and we're really doing our research on where are these records held, we're going to start resorting them a little bit, because we're going to realize, oh, well, this one's right down the street, or, oh, this one's already at MyHeritage. I have a subscription, but this one is going to be a little more challenging. And we also kind of have to look at the type of records they are. So are these kinds of records the best ones to start with? Me, I kind of like getting them all, because you never know, right? What's going to be on each one, each type of record, even if it's giving you some of the basic essential answers to your question. Gosh, they might have other little details that no other record has. Those things written in the margins and on that kind of stuff. So it's nice to be able to get all the records possible. I know most of us who've been around for a while have heard about this, right? And maybe we've scribbled a couple of notes, put some sticky notes around our monitor and kind of said, okay, this is what I'm focusing on. Have you really written out a detailed plan? It's a really good exercise just to ensure you haven't missed all the opportunities. And so that you can pick it up and put it down. I mean, that's what's kind of hard, is you get into the deeper projects and you find, oh, I'm not going to get this in one sitting. But that means when you put it down and then you come back later, you got to figure out where you were, right? And where you left off, and you don't want to repeat. Oh my gosh, have you ever checked out the same book twice from the library? Or, paid for a record and realized, doggone it, I already bought that. Having your research plan and tracking what you're doing, that's going to make it possible to tackle the bigger projects, those ones that have really been in your heart to solve, because you're going to have a way to jump in and out of them. And I think that's well worth doing. Question number 4. do you have the research forms that you need? And one of the nice things about research forms is it really helps you with question number 3, which was, have I identified all the kinds of records that might be available? And there are lots of forms and checklists that will help prompt you for that. And particularly if you're kind of new to genealogy, or if maybe you're new to this area that you're working in. I mean, for me, the Irish research that I did a couple of episodes ago, that was a whole nother ballgame for me. I hadn't really dug in. I'd interviewed people, I'd that kind of stuff, but had I really tackled it myself? No. And it was a challenge, but it was exciting, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So the checklist and the forms are going to help you do that. And I've got freebies for you. Family Tree Magazine, you might know, I host and produce the Family Tree Magazine podcast. Gosh, I've been doing that for over 10 years. I can't believe that. I love it. I love talking to the people who write the articles. And I also write a monthly column. Every month, there's Lisa's picks. It's right towards the front of the magazine. And I share some of my favorite picks every single issue. But at familytreemagazine.com, you don't have to have a membership or a subscription or pay for anything. All you have to do is just register for a free account. It probably will put you on their newsletter. Their newsletter is good. If you don't want it, you can always unsubscribe, so that's not mandatory, but get the account because that's going to then give you access to their free forms. And this is what they look like. There's a ton of them. And in fact, in each one of these categories, you'll find multiple forms. So it's going to be pretty much whatever you need. If there's an area you're struggling in, you need a checklist of records, you need a form to kind of transcribe what you're looking at. I love that process of writing it down yourself. Have you found that? That when you're writing it, when you're filling it in yourself, somehow there's that connection that's happening with your brain. I love that. The forms are super helpful. familytreemagazine.com/free forms. And Ancestry has free forms as well. So here's the link. It's this ancestry.com/cs/charts and forms, and I'll have the link for you. Or you can even Google it. I think it'll probably just pop right up. Again, you don't have to have a paid subscription to get their forms. They don't have as many, but they have some really good ones. It's funny, I was looking at the ancestral chart. It brought me back to being like in the 7th grade and filling out my first pedigree charts. I thought that was I still have those. It was so much fun. Again, I love that process of writing it out yourself. Ancestral charts, a research calendar, research extract, just a place to put stuff that you're finding. Sometimes we're not ready to put it in the database yet. We got to figure out if this is really the right person or the right information, the right family. And so sometimes getting into the forms gives you that kind of holding place to do the analysis. And then you can put things into the database on your software as you can confirm things. And of course, cite your sources, right? I should have that as a question. Do you cite your sources? You want to make record with a source citation for every record that you're finding because sometimes things change, don't they? And you discover, oops, I attached the wrong person, the wrong record. So we have to make sure we're doing that. I've got more questions for you that will help you rate your readiness for research success, and we will do that right after this. Today's episode is sponsored by MyHeritage, a global discovery platform enjoyed by 110 million people worldwide. MyHeritage has it all and offers a full-service experience that bridges your past, present, and future. MyHeritage has developed powerful genealogy tools to enrich your family tree and take your research to the next level. Receive automatic matches to family trees of fellow MyHeritage users and historical records, which provide new details that you can add to your tree. Explore 12 billion historical records to uncover fascinating new insights about your ancestors. Add new information to your family tree in one click. Check your tree for inaccuracies, colorize your black and white photos, and connect with relatives around the globe. MyHeritage makes it all possible and puts the discoveries at your fingertips. I've been colorizing some of my own personal family photos, and not only are they beautiful, but in many of the photos, it's actually been revealing more details so I can see more of my family history. Growing your family tree is easier than ever before with MyHeritage. The discoveries are out there and waiting to be made. Visit myheritage.com and try it today. That's myheritage.com. And now back to rate your readiness for genealogy success. All right, question number 5. This is kind of a follow-up to a past 11s with Lisa as well. Have you established your filing system? We talked about that in 2020. There was a lot to do. A lot of people took on a lot of big projects last year. But this is a really good question to come back to, because if we have a filing system in place that we feel good about, that we're consistent with, that we know how it works, it's not going to slow us down. And I know this is a big project. Does it ever feel like this? You're just like, I wish I had a warehouse to put all my genealogy files. But it doesn't have to be huge, okay? It just has to be a simple process that you've decided on, you're committed to, and you implement. You do it every day. I think I've told you before the story. I had an employer when I was first married, and she would say, if you touch that paper, you need to do something with it. Don't keep shuffling things because you don't have a place to put them. You've got to make a decision about where you're going to put your stuff. So if you know exactly where you're going to file not only paper, but digital files, you're going to speed things up. Otherwise, when you haven't decided, it's going to end up slowing you down, and then you end up duplicating your efforts. You end up losing things. Pretty soon you're losing desk space because things are piling up. You need a system for your paper, where you're going to put your paper, where you're going to put your digital. In episode 6, which is now in the premium archive, I talked about the systems that I use. Hey, there is not one perfect organizational system, so don't feel like there is. I think what really snags people is they spend so much time researching all these different organizational systems that people have, and they never get around to actually doing one because they're afraid if I start this and it's not the right one. Well, here's the thing. It's your system. So if you find there's just some quirky parts about your research that this system isn't quite meeting everything, tweak it, document how you're going to do that, and stick to it. That's all you got to do. So my system, I like 3-ring binders for the archival paper, the stuff that I don't want to lose, that I want to stay safe and protected. So I put everything in acid-free sheet protectors. And then I have a digital file system that kind of mirrors the structure. I don't want this blonde brain to have to think too hard about, okay, well, I do it this way for paper, but I do it this other total different way for digital. If you can get them to kind of mirror each other, all the better, because we don't have to work so hard. We can kind of be on autopilot for our system. And in that episode, I talked about kind of the different components. So if you think about actually where you're filing information, first and foremost, I recommend that you have a genealogy software database, a master database that resides on your computer. You've got control of that. And then you need a place where your active work is happening. So if you're web clipping something off the web, if you're making some notes, if you took a quick interview with somebody, I use Evernote. So sometimes a cloud-based note-taking system is really the thing to have so that you can have it on the go. It's flexible. It takes every kind of note you can imagine, and it also works on all your devices because we never know, whether we're just going to have our phone with us or whether we're going to be using our laptop or our desktop. We want them all to talk together. So I think of the stuff that I'm doing there as this is the project I'm actively working on. It's not, in a sense, formally archived yet, if you will, but it's the active stuff. When I'm downloading records from the genealogy websites, then I extract the information, I kind of process it, but then I need a place to archive it. And I don't really use Evernote for that. Digital documents are large. I put them on my computer. And so I have the folders that I've created. We went through those very specifically. And in fact, if you're a premium member, there's actually another 2-part set video series called Hard Drive Organization that goes even more detailed as to what we did in episode 6. But whatever you decide to do, get a structure that you can commit to and be consistent with. And I like, folders on computers are cheap. They're free. You can just copy them. So you can tweak it later if you need to, but we have to have a place we know we're going to put our digital files. And then when we get paper, and I'm not really talking about printout paper, just stuff that I'm grabbing off the web or somebody sends me an email. I'm talking about original certificates, an original photograph, or a letter that my great-grandparents wrote. Those kinds of things that I want archival safe. So those are going into an acid-free sheet protector. They're going into my 3-ring notebooks. That's the way I've been doing it up to now. And that's nice because the notebooks keep them nice and tidy. When you take it off a shelf, you know where to put it back because there's an exact spot. I like it much better than the hanging files in a file drawer, for sure. Now, here's a tip that I want to share with you if you didn't see episode 6, and that is to include a pending section. We got to have a place where we can put stuff that needs to be processed. But I'm not really keen on just put that in a basket because I could be working on a couple of different things. I've got different stuff coming in, and it might be on different research projects. So if I'm throwing all of that in the same basket, now that's getting kind of muddled, and it's going to be hard to pull out what I need when I'm ready to sit down and work on the Burkett family. So in my notebooks, I have a pending tab. And you can see kind of the system I use here. I use head of households as my tabs to differentiate between the generations for the direct lines of my ancestors. And then I have this pending tab. So this is a great place to just quickly 3-hole punch anything that comes in that's on paper, or if it's an original document somebody sent me, I'm going to put it in a sheet protector and put it in there. But that way, when I'm ready to work on the Burkett family, I go pull that binder and I have it. So this is the stuff I haven't processed yet. I haven't analyzed it and extracted the information, decided that it's correct, and then put it into my database. So that way you always have a place to go when you're ready to work. But you do need a filing basket next to your desk. You do need a garbage can. You're like me. I'm always changing my mind on stuff. But how about a basket by your desk where you've processed this document, you've decided you want to keep it versus going paperless, just making, if you've entered it into your database and you feel like, this was a copy of a copy and it's really not critical, this is not an archival piece of paper, you toss this in the garbage can. But if it is something that you want to hang on to, then you put it in a basket. And that way, it doesn't really matter so much that this is all by family name, because when you're in filing mode, you're in filing mode. You grab the basket, you've made 20 minutes time to go quickly get everything filed where it needs to be. So it's a simple thing, but do you have one? You need one because it really makes a difference. It keeps this stuff off your desk, and that's going to make you more successful too. So when we think about a filing system, it's going to launch you. It's going to help you just move so much faster. Again, for premium members, go under 2 sections in the premium video area. 11s with Lisa has all the archival, and then there is a separate organization topic tile. I kind of put 11s all together just because sometimes when you want to sit down and just catch up on the show, you want it all in one place. But there are some that are very focused, like episode 6 on organization. So, and you know what, premium members? If you have an idea about how you'd like this better organized, I've tried to do it by topic, but, sometimes things are in multiple topics. So I'd love to hear from you. Email me or leave a comment because I'd love to know if you have some ideas on what would work better for you. And I wanted to draw your attention also to the fact that above the tiles in the text, there's a link. It says, click the topic below, or you can download a list of all the videos that are currently available. And I keep that up to date. So if you've ever wondered, gosh, could I just see it all in one list so I can just, maybe I could print it out and check off what I've watched? That's your document. So get that and you can track it that way. Question number 6 is, do you have the supplies that you need? This was something we talked about in a past episode as well, and it's so simple, but it's really nearly impossible to keep your organizational system up and running and efficient if you don't have the stuff that you need in order to be able to continue to expand it. And that's our hope, isn't it? It's going to expand because you're going to find more stuff. So this was my list for the way my system works. I keep 3-inch 3-ring binders, the view binders, so I could put the custom cover as well as a spine on there. I also keep 1-inch binders because not every family line has a lot of archival worthy documents. So, and particularly the farther back you go, you're not going to have as many original letters. I mean, wouldn't you love to have them? But you may not have those. You may not have those things that are just precious and worth keeping that paper and that you really want to keep protected. And to keep them protected, we need to have a box of the acid-free sheet protectors, those archival safe sheet protectors. And I like to have just a collection that I can grab from the tab dividers so I can get whichever tab I need to add on. I'm hoping I'm going to move that family line back, and that means we're going to need more dividers. So just having, a small collection, not a whole bunch of stuff, just maybe a box of each, maybe a couple of binders of each size. That way you're ready to go. You're ready to expand the second that you make a discovery that helps you expand your family tree. Question 7. Have you settled on a file naming scheme? I know this is hard, and I am so guilty of continually changing and putting stuff in there that I shouldn't be. But how about just a basic scheme? So what we mean by this is what's going to be the format of how you're going to label the digital files that you're downloading. Oftentimes, whatever the file is, if it's a genealogy record or PDF or something, whoever created it put a whole naming scheme in there of their own, and you'll see oftentimes it's way more than you need or want. So what I do, this is just my basic, but you can tweak it as you need to. There are no organization police, so they're not going to come and say, you're doing this wrong, right? I like to start with the year. Whatever the document is that I'm filing, the digital document to my computer, I'm going to put the year because that's going to force these documents into chronological order, generally. It's not essential that they are exactly in the order they were created. I just want to be able to find them, right? So we need to know that it was 1920. So that narrows things down and helps get them in order. Your computer's going to automatically do that for you. It alphabetizes things. It's also going to do it numerically. And then I put the first name, and I'll include the middle initial, particularly for those folks who I have many people by that name in my family. Now, the way my system works is I file in surname folders. So it's really not essential to have the surname in the file name. You can do that, absolutely, and sometimes I do just to, be safe. If you have a surname folder, then everything in there we know is of that surname. Now, if you do a lot of sharing of files with other people, you may very much want to have that surname in there so that when the file goes off on its own, it makes sense who these people are. But for me, for just everyday internal use, I'm not going to necessarily have to do that because I know which surname folder it's going to be in on my computer. And then I think location is really important. I mean, genealogy really, the context is time frame, who is it, and where was it, right? If we know the location and the time frame, well, we've got a jurisdiction. We know kind of where to find the records, right? We know the context of, does this make sense that these two people are interacting? That kind of stuff. So this is essential stuff in your filing name. Question number 8, are you prepared to make copies? There's a lot of political uproar and there's arguments going on and all that stuff. I hate listening to that stuff, but it's changing fast. And that's what's catching my eye is how fast all this stuff is changing. When we think about it, it's very fluid, it's very unpredictable, and that's why we would want to be concerned as a family historian. The question I started thinking about this week was, does this AWS hosting have its hands on the plugs of genealogy companies that provide access to millions of historical records? How about our family tree that we put online? I have mine in several different places where you've got your DNA results. You bet they do. In fact, it's really actually hard to find a company out there that isn't in some way tethered to Amazon. And in fact, the more I started trying to look into this to see, oh my gosh, and there's a lot of really big companies that put everything in this AWS bucket. So I wanted to share with you right here from the AWS Amazon blog. They have an article I found just searching for Family Search. It's called The Future of the Family History Industry. And this was fascinating. I'll have a link for you in the show notes so that you can read it for yourself. So it says here, and I just want to touch on this just to give you a sense of kind of what we're talking about here. It features multiple stories about family history genealogy, how these tech companies are using and should be using their services. But this one article says, the AWS cloud has powered many helpful genealogical tools, bridging the gap between generations and distance. And it's interesting because these many companies also have records and ancestors and people who were all involved in the same kinds of things that we found people tearing statues down about. So that has me concerned that history, like it or not, found its way into this ugly mess of the last year or two. And in fact, it goes on to quote Bruce Band, who was, at least at the time of the writing of the article, the vice president of community outreach in the Records and Partners division of Family Search. And he said, if you think about major disruptors in the family history industry, they include technologies such as microfilm, the internet, and now cloud computing. Developers can now create a product and extend it to a world audience with the ease of using AWS. It is a game changer for the family history industry, and it's taking things to the next level in terms of connecting people around the world. The important thing, my friends, that I wanted you to be aware of is he's absolutely right. It makes these platforms possible, but it also puts the plug in one company's hands. And this week, that plug pulled the plug on another 15 million user website. We can all debate, and I'm not interested in debating on for what reason, but it definitely silenced them. So this is of concern. So what does this mean for us? I'm changing my tune a little bit for 2021. In the past, I've been talking about trying to go more paperless, really sticking to just the archival stuff in my 3-ring binders, but I'm really changing that up. I think it's important to make copies, okay? To make printouts of what's in your database, because like it or not, your computer is also connected to major big tech companies. If you've ever woken up in the morning and found a Windows update has totally changed everything on your computer, you know that's true. So we need to be thinking about making backup copies and not just saving them on the computer that they're on, but saving them on a portable hard drive. We know that there's issues with portable hard drives because they can break, right? But they also are just a secondary backup, kind of a safe spot to put that data. I throw mine into it's a fire safe box. It's in my closet. If, God forbid, something happened in my house, I could grab that thing and run outside and I would have the terabyte. It's got all my old home movies I got digitized last year. Yes, I have those files on my computer, but I've got the backups on the digital hard drive. Also printing. I'm printing a lot more. Now, Bill is the king of double-sided printing, and he has taught me how to do this. In fact, for documents that I really don't expect to be, they're not archival safe. They're just things I want my own copy of, not just what's digitized on my computer. I've even put 2 on a page and then double-sided the page. So we don't have to immediately explode into huge volumes of paper. We can do this economically, and not every record needs this. I'm really, really interested in keeping those copies of records, particularly for those direct ancestor lines. They're really the key to everything else that branches out from our family tree. So if for some reason some genealogy company gets on the bad side of a hosting cloud company, I want to know that I can still look and say, yes, I've seen that birth record for my great-great-grandfather and I have it. So I wanted to encourage you to think about just being prepared to make more copies than you've done before. And we want to make those digital. We want to keep them in a safe place, and we also want some paper ones as well. I'm not so sure. Right now, I am filing them in the 3-ring binder. I'm just not putting them in sheet protectors because they're not archival safe items. So I'm putting them in there because I've got the space to do it. If there comes a point where I don't, I would have no problem with, going to my file cabinet and just creating a surname file and dropping those copies in there because they're really just a backup of a backup. And speaking of backup, have you backed up your computer? This is still key because your first line of defense is making sure that everything that's on your computer is backed up. And I'd be really interested to know those of you who did that this year. And how did you find it? Was it hard? I think most people just feel like, I don't know how to do that. I'm not a techie person. It's just a couple of clicks. It really is. It's not worth putting this off. So we've talked about it before. People ask me, I do use Backblaze. I am an affiliate with Backblaze. They're a great company. I met them at Roots Tech. You can go to backblaze.com/Lisa. If you do that, you help support this show, which we very much appreciate. I'll have a link in the video description. But it's the last piece of this puzzle. So everything is going on. We've got it on our computer. First and foremost, let's get the whole thing backed up. It goes to the cloud, but I'm happy to report from everything that I can find and talking to them and looking through their website, they are not using AWS. Backblaze, they have their own servers. So that was another reason early on that I was so impressed with them. It was the level of commitment and the fact that they have theirs. And then you're still going to have that new layer to consider that you want to do in terms of your paper, additional paper, and your own, maybe even a terabyte hard drive. Just have 1 terabyte hard drive on your desk so that you can put things on there to make sure you've got your own offline copy. That's the key. Even better, make copies and then give a duplicate set to somebody else in your family. Got to get it off site, don't we? That's what cloud backup does for us. It gets it off site and keeps it safe. And you can do the same thing with your additional paper and digital copies. This is our happy place, and I want to make sure that you stay happy and you get to keep all your good stuff, the stuff that really matters for generations to come. And so that's why we're talking about that here today. And question number 10, have you scheduled ongoing education? My friends, we got to stay up to date. And hey, you do that because you come here. The most important thing is, just like your project, pick one thing. What's that one area that you would like to fine tune, that you'd like to get better skills and more increased knowledge? Like me, I'm still getting up to speed on Irish research. I'm learning so much more and reading books and talking to people. I want to make sure that you stay here and continue ongoing education with me. So to keep learning with me, here on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/genealogygems, be sure and click the subscribe button. It's a red button. Can't miss it if you haven't clicked it yet. That really helps us, and it will help you stay in touch with us on YouTube. And it makes it easier to find us, particularly if you want to watch it also on your smart TV. Once you click that, you'll see this little bell. You can click that. When you're on YouTube, if we do something, and I'm hoping to use this feature more this year, if I put up a new post, if I'm going to do an impromptu live, you're going to hear about it through the notification bell button. Now, last I looked, that's good while you're on YouTube. So you've got to be subscribed to the free weekly newsletter that I put out. Each week, I'm not going to hit you all day long every day with emails. But each week, typically on Wednesdays, I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to let you know how to get to the show notes for the most recent episode, what the new one is coming up, the podcast, events, whatever is going on in my world here. I'd love to have you be a part of it. So you can subscribe for free on our homepage. Also, how about this? Somebody asked me, Lisa, how do I get a notification when I'm not on YouTube but I want it the minute you put it out there on YouTube. So I post, hey, there's going to be a live show. Now, the newsletter's a couple days off, but she wanted notification that I had posted a new video or a new live show coming up or whatever I was doing on YouTube without having to necessarily be on YouTube. And here's how you do it. So there's a site called blogtrotter.com. There's no E in that ER. If you go there, you're going to put this URL. It's the URL for the homepage of our channel here on YouTube, youtube.com/genealogygems. It'll even prompt you. You got to have the HTTPS. So you got to have the whole kit and caboodle of that URL. Type it in there, paste it in there, and then give it your email address. And you can ask to receive it the moment it happens, or you can get a daily digest. I'm not going to be doing that much all day long, so don't worry too much. But I tend to just sign up for digests because that way, whatever happens during the day, you'll get it the same day. You'll get an email. If you're like me, I'm always in email. So if I want to know about something quickly, this is a great way to see that something new has happened. And you can use it to follow whatever we're doing here on the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. So let's recap the questions and let's get your answers. I'm going to have these downloadable for all you premium members on the show notes page. Do you have a place to start? Your project research question, research plan. Do you have your research forms? We got the freebies for you. Filing system, super important. Do you have the supplies that you need? And yes, you have permission to go out and get those. Do you have your file naming scheme you've decided on? Even if it's just a basic one, you can customize as you use it, but just so you know you're being consistent. Are you prepared to make copies? Because you are the keeper of your family history. And hey, generations are counting on you. So no matter what this crazy world is doing, I know you're doing the right things at home. Computer cloud backup. Oh my gosh, I hope you do this. I know I've heard many stories from people. I've had it myself. I've had my own computer break, so it's super important. And ongoing education. Hey, you don't know what you don't know, and things keep changing, do they not? So you want to make sure that you're not doing it the old hard way, you're doing it the new, easier way. And that's what I'll help you do here at Genealogy Gems. So that was Rate Your Readiness. Thanks for joining me for Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 249. Now you'll find the show notes for this episode over at genealogygems.com. And in the blue menu, look for podcast and then go to the podcast episodes and click on number 249. You'll find everything there. And this audio comes to you from, of course, our weekly YouTube live show. It's called 11s with Lisa. 11s with Lisa is kind of our little slice of heaven each week where we as friends can get together for tea or whatever your favorite beverage is and talk about the thing that never fails to put a smile on our face. Of course, that's genealogy. And you will find 11s with Lisa at genealogygems.com/11s. Rate Your Readiness was episode 39. We've got lots of great episodes coming up in the future. Now, if you've never joined us live, it is a lot of fun. So if you can squeeze us into your Thursday, for me here, it's 11 o'clock a.m. Central. That might be, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, or we have folks from around the world joining us. If you can squeeze that into your day, we'd love to see you live. The fun part about doing the live show is that everybody can get together and chat in the live chat right alongside the video when you're watching it there on 11s with Lisa. I'm coming to you live and we can chat back and forth as well as you guys chatting with each other. And it's just an awful lot of fun, kind of a nice break to the day and a great way to get a recharge, kind of a tune-up for your new year. And we do that every Thursday. Now, the live show happens at our YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/genealogygems. And really the best way to be notified and to remember to attend the live show is to get on our free Genealogy Gems email newsletter list. You can do that over at genealogygems.com. There is a red button at the top of the screen. Click that to join the newsletter. It comes out once a week. It's your chance to read the latest articles, of course, find out about the most recent video replays of 11s with Lisa and the Genealogy Gems podcast. as well as letting you know about the new live episode that's going to be coming up that week. So you can click the button there in the newsletter, and that will take you to the show live if it happens to be Thursday at 11 a.m. when you click it, Central. And if not, click it, and it'll take you over to where the video will be. And there in the bottom left-hand corner of the video, you can click where it says Set Reminder. And what that will do is send you a little email just before the show is going to go live, just a little reminder to say, hey, click here and head on over. We're ready to start the show. If by chance the timing doesn't work for you, no problem. We've got them all on video replay for you. You can watch the latest free episodes of 11s with Lisa at genealogygems.com/11s. And you can also, if you are a premium member, watch all the archived episodes. So log into your membership, and then under premium in the menu, go to premium videos and click on 11s with Lisa. That's one of the many topics that we have there, all the different videos and handouts. There you're going to find those early videos, all of the handouts. And of course, for just about every episode, we do have a downloadable handout. That's an exclusive perk for those of you who are premium members. It's a yearly membership at Genealogy Gems, and in addition to all my classes on video with handouts, the premium podcast episode, you get that super convenient download. It's the PDF of the entire show notes for each episode. There's no ads on it. It's a PDF, so it's completely searchable and a wonderful reference tool for you. Lots of times, depending on the subject, we might have extra checklists for you or places for you to write your own notes. But we always have the step-by-step of everything we're talking about. So it's a terrific resource. We hope that you'll join us live if you can. And if not, you can certainly enjoy those video replays. Well, that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.